Hey folks, this is Mike here with another NoScript video. Today we're going to do a quick one on Doom. So I figure most people have already seen the opening sequence, so why not do it again? I'll just use it to kind of give you an idea of what the tone is, what to expect, and basically what I've been playing for the last couple hours or so. Because there shouldn't be too much of a surprise, but anyways. As usual, if you're new to these videos, the NoScript series is, well, as the title implies, it's not scripted. I have a minimal amount of planning on these videos that I basically plan them like 5 minutes before I start recording. Other than that, yeah, no scripting, no editing. I save myself a lot of time by just recording and straight uploading it right away, instead of doubling or tripling the amount of time I spend on each of these videos by doing a little bit of editing, a little bit of processing here and there. This way it works out really good for me, actually, especially when I'm tight for time. So as you may or may not, actually you'll see it now. Yeah, this is kind of what this game is. You're a little bit of a god, apparently. If you've not seen this part before, spoiler alert,
we have to contain this.
They regard you as a bit of a god here, which is kind of funny, to be quite honest. And obviously, like you, your armor here is encased in stone as well. So that's kind of the vibe from the beginning, but this next little bit here with the screen it will give you a pretty good idea of just who you are as a guy, because a lot of people do regard you as a bit of a savior in a lot of ways. You yourself don't seem to care too much as a Doom guy, because who cares, you're just here to kill, right? So, yeah, up until this point, game's been really fun. It's one of these things, once we get into the shooting bits, it's a very fast-paced game. Like, it's a perfect way to implement how these older, especially the original Doom, but how a lot of these older games were back in their day, but kind of modernizing it a little bit. Because like it or not, these games do have to appeal to some people who are maybe not the best at games. So the glory kill system kind of helps out with that in a lot of ways. But of course, if the game's too easy, well, there are things you can do to make it a little bit more difficult for yourself. I super quickly tried like the three difficulties. We're playing on the normal one now, but just the harder one is noticeably more difficult, especially when you're not completely in tune with the way the game plays and whatnot. Alright, so we'll run through this a little bit here. Actually, before we get started, I do want to show something a little bit different than your typical video, because obviously I'm sure most of you have seen that that opening part there. So on the fly difficulty switching is always really cool. A lot of it just simple options, right? If that glory kill stuff is really annoying, you can take it off. They give you options for that. They give you a lot of options for just notifications or prompts and markers and all sorts of things like that. So you can turn off all of that stuff, which is really nice. There's a couple, not a ton of options, but a couple key binding things you can change here. Which, if you're wondering why like key bindings look weird, is I don't run a standard layout. So this game did use my Dvorak layout no problem. A lot of games I have 3 map keys, which is stupidly annoying. That's developers not trying out just weird edge cases like that. This is one of those games I don't have to care about it. I would have liked to see a couple more audio things, like a mixing option. It does sound like it's mixed for headphones though, so that's fine. Beyond that, yeah, different aspect ratios, which is nice. Obviously a lot of resolution settings. I have a G-Sync monitor as well, so I do have to have V-Sync on for that. And yeah, field of view. So 115, I may run it a little bit higher, but we can go up to 130, which is nice. And I believe the default is 90. It's either 90 or 100. Might be 90 actually. That is the lowest you can go, which is pretty nice. I'm always used to 120, but it's getting a little high for some people, so I don't want to go too high. But this is what I wanted to show off. You know, a lot of just good graphic settings. First of all, right, no proprietary bullshit here. We've got Vulkan, OpenGL, you know, true cross-platform APIs, which obviously have better performance as well overall. You don't have to. You're not artificially restrained to certain operating systems to run Vulkan, the same way Microsoft would say for DirectX, Direct3D. But yeah, just a lot of good graphic options here, which is always a nice thing to have. A lot of pretty high-end stuff going on. Different rendering modes, if you're into that kind of cinematic bullshit. But also the performance metrics. I always got a bit of a laugh with this one, right? You could just set your low, which is FPS. Boring. You can set it to high here. We got a couple more, and those of you who really like some data here. We got some nice graphs going in, some averages and stuff, and yeah, I've got a Ryzen 7, so got my 8 threads, or 8 cores, 16 threads. And I think that's it. Yeah. So, go through this battle here. Despite running this thing like absolutely maxed out, I believe the numbers are actually frame times. Those green numbers there. I'll have to double check. I think that's frame time. I don't know. So number, yeah, it must be. It can't be low because the load is slower down. But even then, you know, for how good this game looks, I'm still shocked at how incredibly well it runs. Not only that, but it's like, it's not actually that demanding in a lot of ways, right? I'm sitting here at 120 frames a second. Mind you, 120 frames a second with OBS going. I am using the NVIDIA encoder though, which helps a little bit for performance. But you know, I'm recording here with OBS, which is gonna use a little bit of GPU power, and not much, to be fair. Very little overhead. Same with CPU, very little CPU overhead. Yeah, most of the overhead will be just processing the file and saving it to drive and doing whatever for the container.
I'm willing to take full responsibility.
But look at that. 60 frame lock during the cutscene. Again, if you haven't had an idea of what the story's all about, there you go. Betterment of mankind. That guy does seem like he's better off. Also, yeah, those numbers are totally the frame times. Because 16 milliseconds corresponds to 60 frames a second. But yeah, even out here, you know, big outdoor, well, I say big, it's actually not huge. It's still a pretty large environment. Obviously games like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds have larger environments than this. But that's kind of what I've been thinking about. Like, it's still a... I wouldn't say this is the biggest area. Actually, no. I think over there we'll get a little bit bigger in terms of sight lines and stuff like that. And yeah, it's, I don't know. It's annoying when you play some of these other games like what was it, Dying Light that I did the other week, 2 weeks ago at this point I think. It's been a while since I completed it. You know, playing that game and just having performance stutters constantly for no particular, you know, no good reason, because it's not like that game is or should be demanding. Right here we have a phenomenal looking game, a lot of particle effects, an okay amount of AI going on, nothing too crazy, but just a lot of reasonably advanced rendering stuff. Okay, that guy's not dying. Yeah, we got some decently advanced rendering techniques going on here. Fairly large high-res textures. I don't know if I actually have an extra texture packet we can download for this, but like, I don't have the same performance issues. And the thing is, this game runs on like some really low-end hardware, which is kind of impressive. Again, kind of stuff you can expect. But yeah, there we go. This is a bit of a larger area. And even then, not a whole lot going on. Not a whole lot going on in terms of performance problems, so, you know, it is what it is. This new Doom game looks great, runs great, and it doesn't suffer the same problems that a lot of these other modern games seem to have, which it still blows my mind here in, you know, 2017, 2018. We'll have some games with significant performance issues, or, you know, look, we've got some modern game engines available that run phenomenally well, and yet some people still seem to have a hard time with that. So I don't know. On one hand, I do understand that, which, you know, it is time that you need to spend on the game, optimize, you know, doing optimizations and instead of making content. But at the same time, get what these guys have been able to manage. Alright. Just go murder some of these guys real quick. But beyond that, yeah, not too much else to add, honestly. Like, this plays incredibly well. You know, like I mentioned before, right, the performance side of things is just amazing. It still impresses me a lot just how well this runs. You know, it's right from the get-go, perfectly smooth, amazing frame rate, no stutters, no nothing, just nothing. I don't think I've had a hitch. The load times are pretty quick. Yes, I use an SSD, but still, had games with arbitrarily long load times. And as for the game itself, music is really fun. You know, they've made Doom music without being your typical well, put it this way, without your typical heavy metal kind of sound that you would want or you would think they'd use, right? They've gone out. I don't remember the guy's name, unfortunately. He did a great work on the soundtrack. But yeah, the guy who did the soundtrack for this, you know, he talked about how he composed the the soundtrack without having to rely, or also Bethesda, well not Bethesda, but the developers also came up to them and said, look, don't use guitars. We don't want to hear that. We want to hear something different. And that's what he did. Obviously, the guitars kind of crept its way back in later on, but he didn't rely on that from the beginning. And the soundtrack's pretty unique. You know, it's definitely the sound you would expect out of this kind of game. Just like the gameplay, it's the kind of gameplay you'd expect out of this game. Except it's not the same. It's not something you've seen before, necessarily. And the end result is, well, a couple hours I've played originally, or up to this point.
I am Vega, the sentient intelligence
It's been really good.
Mars. After running diagnostics on the Praetor suit, it appears that I can activate optional challenges that, when completed, will assist in upgrading your arsenal at an accelerated pace. I have added a tracking component to your dossier.
We'll wait for that real quick. Go to tab to get your map stuff, which is pretty cool. There's a 3D map, a lot of layers and things as you work your way through the map. And then upgrades, you can unlock different components if you want, which is pretty cool. And then same with your suit. And then there's basically your databases of infos. And yeah, I think that's it, at least for now. I don't think I'll have a follow-up review anytime soon necessarily, but we'll see. We'll see how long it'll take me to run through this. I've been taking it nice and slow. I've been enjoying this game a lot, so I'm playing it in small chunks to just kind of enjoy it, you know, not just breeze through it in a sitting or two. Definitely taking some time with this one and having fun with every minute of it. But yeah, overall it's a phenomenal game. It's one of those things where, yeah, it's not really necessarily scary. It's not really. It's just fun, and they designed it correctly. They did everything, you know, differently, and it paid off because damn, this game's pretty fucking good.